did you know that there are some other ways and that people don't really pay attention to that buyers can cancel contracts and it's outside of those three contingencies?
I do, but I don't know if all of our listeners do.
I don't think they
So
do. I don't think they do. So let's go through it right now because these are things that they need to know. These things can happen outside of the inspection period, guys. So you could have already had your inspection, you could have already negotiated, you could have already decided on repairs credits, whatever it is, and then boom, this hits you like a ton of bricks. And that's what we.
Hey y'all, Katie here with Team Evo AZ at eXp Realty in the Phoenix, Arizona area. Welcome to our show, Real Estate Fitness, where we keep your real estate muscle strong by sharing tips and tricks to help you navigate the real estate world. Enjoy the show.
Well, hey, Dana and everybody else. Welcome to another episode of Real Estate Fitness, where we keep that real estate muscle strong.
good morning, everybody.
It's important to keep that real estate muscle strong, isn't it, Dana?
Oh man, it is so important to keep your real estate, all your muscles,
Yeah,
but when it comes to this business, you definitely got to keep them strong.
right, because there's all these little nuances, there's all these little things. Purchase contract is a long document. There's a lot of stuff in there that you need to know. And a lot of people, unfortunately, kind of dive into this whole big old thing without knowing very much of that. And then that's when unpleasant surprises happen. And I tell you, my most favorite real estate transaction is a boring one. I don't like me any, unpleasant surprises or any surprises at all, actually. Surprises in real estate, no bueno.
But it's the small details, kind of like when, you're working out your muscles. It's those small muscles that really help create, the strength for the bigger ones. So that's some of the stuff I know we're going to dive into today.
Yeah, huge point. So a couple of episodes ago, we talked about the three contingencies in the purchase contract, the safety nets that we like to call them when we're talking to our buyers, right? And that's the inspection contingency, the financing contingency, and the appraisal contingency. We already went over those. We're not going to go over them again. But that's really what sticks in everybody's mind, I feel like, as their outs as a buyer in the contract. And of course, the seller needs to know what outs the buyer has too, so that they're not super surprised. But did you know, and I know you know, Dana, because you work with me, but did you know that there are some other ways and that people don't really pay attention to that buyers can cancel contracts and it's outside of those three contingencies?
I do, but I don't know if all of our listeners do.
I don't think they
So
do. I don't think they do. So let's go through it right now because these are things that they need to know. These things can happen outside of the inspection period, guys. So you could have already had your inspection, you could have already negotiated, you could have already decided on repairs credits, whatever it is, and then boom, this hits you like a ton of bricks. And that's what we want you to avoid. So the best thing that we can do is just make you aware of it so that you know what's going on. You don't have any surprises. There are 5 of them. So outside of the 3 main contingencies, there are 5 other ways that buyers could basically disapprove a property. And we're going to talk about those real quick. And I'm going to share my screen. So the first one that I want to chat about, and we're just going to kind of go in order of the purchase contract. But the first one that I want to talk about is the title commitment and title insurance. So when we start, when we're under contract, we send the contract and all of the documents to the title company. The title company orders what's called a prelim. They order the CC&Rs from the HOA, all of that jazz, right? And once that comes in, the buyer has an opportunity to review that information. And if there is anything on that the buyer disapproves of, is unable to get through, is a material fact and causes them to not wish to buy the home, then it says right here, this is what line is it? 126 under section 3C of our Arizona purchase contract. And it says, buyer shall have 5 days after receipt of the title commitment and after receipt of notice of any subsequent exceptions to provide notice to seller of any items disapproved. So they got 5 days, folks. They find something in that title work that is just not up to speed for them, they're out, and they can. And it's without penalty, and their earnest deposit is returned.
that's a big one. That is a huge one with CC&Rs.
Big. Yeah, we're gonna talk a little bit more about CC&Rs here in just a sec, because there is additional verbiage on the HOA addendum, which always accompanies the purchase contract. It's part of the purchase contract when we have a property in an HOA. I want to talk about that in just a minute. But next one, if we're going in order in the purchase contract, is the disclosure section. So section 4, 4A and 4B, rather, the seller property disclosure statement, which we call the SPUDS in the biz, and it's not SPUDS, guys, so don't spell it that way. It's SPDS. I always laugh when I get a SPUDS from like another agent. Insurance claim history report also. So those two go hand in hand. That is something that as a seller, when you list with us, we're going to ask you to do that up front right when you list with us. So that way we have that in the file. And as soon as we go under contract with a buyer, we can send it over to the buyer and that clock starts ticking. So this actually should happen within your inspection period. But a lot of times sellers kind of drag their feet. Maybe they don't think it's so important. Maybe their agent doesn't tell them it is. And they don't get it to us within that inspection period. That could cause some issues for them. That is a breach of contract. But mostly, again, they have, for the SPUDS, they have 5 days, again, after receipt to accept or decline the property based on the SPUDS, based on the property disclosure from the seller. Same thing with the insurance claims history. So if we get which we'll in the business call a clue, if we get a clue report and it's got all these claims on it, and that makes the buyer uncomfortable, that's a material fact that, causes the buyer to not to wish to purchase the property, not to wish to move forward, they've got that opportunity where they can cancel. That's another one.
Yep. Yeah. Good opportunities. Yeah. Just to, relook at the property, so it's a good opportunity to make sure you're buying you're getting what you think you're getting,
Absolutely. And here, I know we just were on a listing appointment yesterday, Dana, and this subject came up. But here in Arizona, like I tell my sellers, disclose, disclose, disclose. If you have a question whether or not you should disclose, the answer is disclose. Like,
yes.
I don't care. I don't care how minor it is. Disclose your little behind off, because you don't want to be stuck in a situation after the fact, after you close on a property and a buyer finds out that you didn't disclose something and they deem that a material fact, or rah rags, like you're going somewhere.
And it's not a good place to go.
It's not a good place to go. Don't go. All right, so we're through 1, 2, and 3. Here is number 4. Again, if we're following the purchase contract in order here, and this pertains to the lead-based paint disclosure, and this is on line 175. And basically says that the buyer may, within 10 days or however many days after receipt of the lead-based paint information, so you can fill in the blank there, that is a spot in the purchase contract that you can put another number days, like less than 10 or more than 10. But that many days after receipt of the lead-based paint information, they could conduct or obtain a risk assessment or inspection of the premises for the presence of lead-based paint or lead-based paint's hazards, which we call the assessment period, right? Mm-hmm. And the buyer may, within 5 days after receipt of the lead-based paint information or 5 days after expiration of the assessment period, they may cancel the contract. That is a big one that people overlook. And in fact, I've never heard any other agent talk about that.
Yeah, I think, like you said, it's one that we kind of just glance over sometimes, and, like, okay, it was built, 1978 or before, and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah. And a lot of agents don't warn their buyers of this, or tell their buyers this, or share it with sellers. We dealt with this a lot back in the day when we were doing a lot of historic properties. I mean, we love historic properties. We still work with them, but we were really, really working historic properties a couple of years ago. And we were running into this constantly because those properties were built in the 30s, 40s, 50s, you know what I mean? And so this was something that was huge for us and was always on the forefront for us. But again, a lot of our competition, I don't think they pay much attention to that one, and it can really get you.
Yep. I'm glad we're talking about it today.
Me too. All right. Last one here. Let's see. So this one, we're going to go off the purchase contract. Remember I mentioned in the beginning of the show, that we have an HOA addendum that will accompany our contract and be a part of our contract if this property is in an HOA. And this is kind of a little just portion of that addendum. But on line 40, it specifically says buyer is allowed 5 days after receipt of the information from the sellers or homeowners association to provide written notice to seller of any items disapproved. And now they're going to get it from the homeowners association if there are 50 or more units in that particular development. So that's typically the way it works. The homeowners association is responsible for providing that. But once you get it, you got 5 days to look that over. And if there's something in those CC&Rs that's just not going to work for you, then you can cancel the contract at no penalty. In fact, this just happened with one of our clients, and it was like so silly, but I get it. Like, I totally understand the buyer's position. We had the seller and the buyers got the CC&Rs, and there was a clause in the CC&Rs, like deep, like think jillions of pages, right? And there's like this little one line deep into the CC&Rs that basically said that the property had a restriction as to how many animals can be kept on the property. So in this particular situation, it was 2. So you could have a combination. You could have like 1 dog, 1 cat, 2 dogs, something like that, right? And this particular buyer has 4. And, you know, we were just talking before the show, these animals are your babies. Like, they're part of the family. I'm sorry, but if I'm not buying a house where my babies can't come with me.
No, they are. They're family members. So
yeah. And so that unfortunately, you know, blew up that transaction. And it sounds real silly, but from the buyer's standpoint, no, they can't live in that house. They can't bring their babies.
Yeah.
And, you know, somebody had mentioned, not party to the transaction, but somebody I was talking to was like, well, so what? Like, just do it anyway, ask for forgiveness later. But, and how are they ever going to know? Well, people tattle.
Neighbors know.
Neighbors tattle. And
you don't want that.
No, and these buyers just didn't A, want that kind of trouble, and B, just don't want to deal with it. And honestly, I don't blame them a bit.
Yeah, no, they have to do what's right for them and their family.
Exactly. So it's super important, guys, to read through the purchase contract. If you work with one of us, we're obviously going to help and guide you through that. But a lot of people don't. So make sure that you're reading through those documents and you understand all of these time periods and when things need to happen and how long you have to, you know, look over information and disapprove of that information if you see fit. Very, very important.
Yeah, I love that we went over this today because these are 5 really big, important pieces of our contract that, like you said, get overlooked sometimes. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Dana, and thank all of you out there. If you would like to catch any of our previous shows, maybe you want to, learn about neighborhoods here in the Phoenix, Arizona area. So maybe you want to watch our neighborhood news show, or maybe you're interested in what's going on monthly and you want to catch our monthly market update where we really dive into hyperlocal statistics. We talk about inventory levels. We talk about interest rates. We talk about what the market's doing. We talk about just so much that really pertains to Arizona real estate. If you want to catch any of that information, guys, hop on over to our YouTube channel. We are at Team EvoAZ. That is our handle. And just scroll around. There's a bunch of playlists there. It's very nicely organized, if I do say so myself. So proud of it.
You should be.
But it is everything that you need to know about Arizona real estate. We're constantly adding to it. We're constantly talking about what's going on out there in the field because we are constantly working with a variety of buyers and sellers. So we've got all of this experience that we love to bring to you. Check out our YouTube channel. If you are more of the audio person, like maybe you run a lot, bike a lot, work out, whatever, drive a lot. I know Dana drives a lot. Then you can hop on over to your favorite podcast platform and do a quick search for Arizona Real Estate Radio, and you are going to come across our podcast channel. We are unlike any other podcast channel where it's actually like a channel, and it has a bunch of shows that run through it versus just one podcast. So hop on over there, hook up with our channel, and you will be strong in real estate. Fit, I should say. You will be real estate fit.
I like it. Real estate fit.
Until next time.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Bye.